What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the fourth album by rapper Juicy J. Basically, this product is called Rubba Business, and it came out in the late fall of 2017. The thing about this particular product is this is another hit classic album for Juicy J here. I'd have to say in particular, it's like the third one that's going to get a classic score as far as pitches like that kind of happen. I severely enjoyed Hustle Till I Die from 2009 and Stay Trippy from 2013, both of which are pretty excellent type albums. Like I was saying, very vicious. I feel like Hustle Till I Die was definitely a house party smash. Definitely some residential and localized kind of haunting type music, kind of getting like a very kind of low key and this kind of more gungy type aspect. I don't mean gunge in terms of quality, but just the aspect of just like standard sleeves for like house party type fare where there's going to be like Budweiser and that type beer, just things like that. Just not to say anything against Budweiser, but just kind of more standard beer sipping, kind of that house party sleaze type music I'd had to say. And then Stay Trippy was a lot more just like early 2010s trap type glosses with the pitch behind it, just some ratchet type music that had a lot of appeal, DJ Mustard type beats, Wiz Khalifa around the one night in first class type tons pitches like that. Just some good concepts on there, just a good amalgamation. A lot of that pretty glossy overall album. I'd have to say definitely had some of Juicy J's larger hits like Bands and Make Her Dance, and then Show Out with Jeezy and Big Sean, some of those type ones. Definitely pretty, both of which are classic albums. But this one was a surprising classic too. I was not expecting this one. Unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention to this album back when it came out. I think I might have listened to it like once in like late 2017. I remember like hearing about it, knowing that it came out. Thought it was pretty slick because he had named this particular product after the mixtape series that had this particular title. So there are some mixtapes called Rubba Band Business. It might be more than two, I'd have to say. There might be like a small handful of Rubba Band Business mixtapes. I'm definitely going to get to those down the road. I'd have to say it was just a concept. I'm glad that Juicy J amalgamated this. Because originally he was going to put out an album called THC The Hustle Continues, which did come out in 2020, but originally it was supposed to come out in 2014. Remember really being hyped and excited for it around that particular time, but it just kept getting delayed and pitches like that. And I thought he wasn't going to put out the album. So it took him 4 years to follow up Stay Trippy. I remember getting lost in like the transaction as to having that particular album come out, but this is definitely not to be ignored. I'd have to say. The thing about this particular album, I said that 2009's Hustle Till I Die was more house party type fare, and 2013 Stay Trippy was more ratchet and kind of DJ Mustard type bounce with like some good club gloss and early 2010s drill, early 2010s trap. I'd have to say I look after this one as the amalgamation of like vintage 3-6 Mafia type sound that Juicy J is known for throughout the 90s and 2000s and pitches like that, mixed with late 2010s trap that's circa the IG life that folks like Future, Migos, and Travis Scott help meld and push along as far as that particular kind of goes. And obviously Juicy J takes this particular sound like a fish to water. It's no exception. He's no exception to the rule with this particular type one. I look after it. This is just a real tour de force, and it's a relatively brief out too. It's a real snappy type one. Really only has like has 12 songs here. Has 12 songs on here, not counting the intro. I'd have to say it's just an excellent concept, but despite the snappiness of this album, it just hits like a ton of bricks. I'd have to say, and the concept behind it, this is not really like the gloss behind this album is a lot of this is just in motion. I noticed like there's some ones on here, the typical kind of late night outings and snack runs, gas station runs, Taco Bell runs that I talk about with 3-6 Mafia type 2, and some of that is on here just like it was on Hustle Till I Die. This is like a very swamped and just kind of overall ghostly, but just in a more kind of dredgy type feel. There is some makeshift on here. It's an interesting concept. The third single, Flood Watch, is a really off-handed kind of one, a roundabout type song that has some blue collar type makeshift, but I look after it also. This is a commerce type project, I would have to say, which I do like the aspect of, but it just kind of has a lot of in motion type sounds that this is very busybody typeness to kind of have. So it's definitely not. This one's just not as much of like a sitting duck type tune. Just as far as pitches like that, it's not as much PlayStation type music. Not to have anything wrong with PlayStation type music, but it just has a lot more kind of not necessarily full blown wanderlust like traveling across the country pitches like that, but just the concept of just not sitting still. I'd have to suppose just the concept of kind of getting towards it. And I look after it, but the concept about it is even when sitting still, even when you're at like a nightclub venue, something like that, house party, whatever, hangout type for this kind of is. It just has some very loud knocks. This is very slapping type out in the production at fair on this particular product is pretty damn excellent. I'd have to say it's just a very kind of damn near I want to say schizophrenic project just in terms of the context as to how this overall frenetic it kind of is. This is very spastic, and I like the concept of it, but it does it in a trap sense. It's not like old dirty bastard kind of spastic, something like that, or mystical kind of spastic, but it is frenetic just within the sense of just the turn up to the point once again, this is the third album here that getting turned up with Juicy J is kind of the concept that you have to drink responsibly and watch yourself, because the concept that these crazy songs on here can push you over the edge if you're not careful, which I do thoroughly enjoy the concept of that as usual, but it's this kind of thing as far as getting that. So it's just another stock crazy one. Juicy J did not turn down like the crazy factor on this particular album, so this continues that even as far out as 2017, which I appreciate. But yeah, there's 3 singles off this particular project, which is pretty dope. Now, the unfortunate thing about these is just the fact that they did not chart heavily. The highest charting song off this particular product was Ain't Nothing, the second single, which has Wiz Khalifa on there and Ty Dolla $ign. Luckily, I'm glad that he decided to put out the album, because originally, like I said, he tried putting out some singles in 2014, which was going to be on The Hustle Continues from the 2014 version of that, but it just never manifested. But I kind of feel like that was the reason why that album got delayed. But I'm glad he just finally decided to put these out, because, yeah, the Ain't Nothing, the second single, which was the highest charting song off this album, was a bubbling under single on the hip hop chart, so it didn't hit like the Billboard 100 or the Billboard 115, the bubbling under singles. I mean, I think it hit the rap bubbling under singles, but I'm just surprised that this particular album just didn't do that well. I wonder why Juicy J kind of got ignored on this particular project, because he was buzzing on like Instagram and pitches like that. He just continued to have highlights and just making money and pitches like that. It's just surprising. But yeah, No English is the first single, so this has Travis Scott on there. No English is like a gnarled and jazzy kind of trap cruise out song, I'd have to say. In particular, it's like some vintage kind of Travis Scott sound, I would have to say, and it's like a stellar Juicy J turn up noise with a song I would definitely feel like. So this one, somewhat basic, just the approach behind it, but I do like the concept of the quality here. It's just a good concept, kind of the amalgamation behind late 2010s and mid 2010s trap with like Juicy J's 36 Mafia sound. I like the bolsterment of having Travis Scott on the hook. That really helps things out. Just a typical kind of trap tune that was just popular around the past 7, 8, 9, 10 years, as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Just some good, excellent concepts to kind of get here. So if you do appreciate that particular sound. Now, moreover, there's more songs in this particular product, but this at least is like a good buzz song to kind of have like some good trap thump. Just if you're used to things like Future, Migos, some of those type folks, Yo Gotti past like 2014, some of those type fares, I'd have to say is like a stock kind of one to get here with like some vehicle slap and just overall bass that just has that heaviness that I say typical kind of looming Travis Scott hook vocals that he does with auto tune pitches like that. So that's a nice one, nice vanilla 2010s trap. Ain't Nothing, like I was saying, is the highest charting single off this product, which is not saying much in terms of like the commercial fare, but it's definitely a very vicious quality type one to get here. So this one has Wiz Khalifa and Ty Dolla $ign classic team up. This, I think this album came out on the Taylor Gang label. This is like a glaring kind of nightclub carnage of a song, I'd have to say, but this is really like a vanilla kind of 2010s trap socials, I'd have to say, is the concept of it. Just some more stock type fare. This one's not quite as big. This one's not quite as vehicle centric and as pounding for like pull up type music as compared to No English, I'd have to say, but this is a great song to go nuts to. Reminds me of like DJ Khaled's Every Chance I Get from his 2021 album. Just a good standard, just vanilla bop to kind of like some dance floor type appeal. It's like an IG bop. I would definitely feel like good for like some Instagram stories, some pictures like that. Just some standard kind of noise and this overall viciousness to kind of have for some of that, just fraternizing. It's like a good dance club hitter, like I was saying. It just really has some of that appeal. Basic type one, Juicy J, and just on like a more strip club type appeal and pitches like that. I'd have suppose this real nice kind of stock type cut to get the asses shaking, some pitches like that, the standard commotion to kind of get here. Do appreciate this one. But the thing about the singles off this particular product, the thing that I would pay attention to more so than like the commercial smash hit, just because it feels like Juicy J did not really, not necessarily like he didn't get the quality on this album, but it just kind of feels like the commotion behind it is what you're getting by this particular stage. I mean, the fact that Juicy J had been around since like 92, 93, if not further, this is kind of the concept that it's just like when you get a Snoop Dogg album past like the mid 2010s, that I'd say it's just kind of the concept that the album cuts are definitely pretty thrilling on here, which I just would have to say. The singles are good, but it's just kind of the concept of you're expecting like a hit like Bands That Make Her Dance or something like that, or like Stay Fly off of Most Known Unknown by 36 Mafia, or Lolly Lolly Pop That Body, one of those type ones. Doesn't have like one of those commercial type ones, like a humongous type fare, but it is a good concept that this is basically just like your update and like a shot in the arm in terms of loud pack for like a 36 Mafia type sound, and just overall that trap snarl that kind of has this kind of thing. But I look after it. But a surprising one on here that attempted to do some of that relative type appeal in like a blue collar and mainstream type sense and makeshift type sense would be Floodwash. Now this has Offset on here for Migos. And this one is interesting just because it's so offhanded. This is a surprisingly peppy kind of blue collar trap tune, I'd have to say. This one reminds me of Ariana Grande of all people as far as that particular kind of goes. I want to say maybe it was T-Pain, but it definitely reminds me of Ariana Grande just off of her album from 2013. I forget what that one was called. I think it's called like Yours truly, something like that, was one of those songs off that particular album. Just completely different pitch. Taking Ariana Grande, who's a lot more tapioca and just overall balmy and pitches like that, I'd say, compared to Juicy J with his standard trap snarl. I'd have suppose the lyric snarl is definitely on here. I'd have suppose just the concept, despite the fact that this feels like a blue collar in terms of the production, is typical kind of 3/6 type fare, and this is just like a work type jam. And by that I mean WERK, just a typical type fare. If you can play rap music with some relative turn up at your jobs and pitches like that, it's a good concept kind of have like work as far as going along with that. But just kind of somewhat makeshift, but not wholesomely. It's just at least Juicy J's concept, because I can't think of too many times where Juicy J's really been on blue collar and kind of more vintage radio, apart from his song with Katy Perry, the Dark Horse song, I'd say. So it's just good concept to at least have the attempt behind it. It's at least something that kind of meets you halfway, slightly, I'd suppose. Maybe not halfway, but maybe meets you like 40% or 42% somewhere in there. Just would have to say. But so yeah, the concept about this particular album, there's 13 songs on here, and not counting the intro, there's 12 songs off this particular album. So out of those 12 songs, I wound up recommending 11. So the only song I don't recommend in any fashion on here is Just Too Many. Talk about that one. That was just kind of a slanted type trap beat. This one was trying to be like a turn up type song, which I do applaud the attempt, which I do appreciate the attempt of at least it wanting to do it, but I feel like the kind of warped and just offhanded type production just didn't fit quite as heavily as it needed to. I feel like it wasn't necessarily like standard kind of trap, just within the sense like that bass, like the knock of something like Ain't, or like No English, or like the standard dance club bounce of like Ain't Nothing, some of those type ones. But it just didn't really, it felt like something that like Ouija Mac or Lil Baby would have done, but it just didn't really nail it quite as well as like having one of these kind of wild card type tunes that just had like that relative kind of vibrant type appeal and just offhandedness that just didn't work. So it's this kind of thing. But I just look after it's a decent bop. It is a turn up type song to get, but I just didn't have like the affliction behind it. But every other song on here I recommend. Definitely an immediate one to go for, I'd say, would be Buckets. This is the Lex Luger beat, and that's definitely one of the shrill ones. This definitely a pretty vicious and shrill one. This is like one of the album's best beats, I would have to say in particular. It's like a Lex Luger. Lex Luger definitely annihilates this particular beat. I'd have to say just a real thrilling type one. It's like some vintage kind of stay trippy. It's like some vintage kind of stay trippy album from 2013 vibes. I'd have to say about this one. Just some of that type fare that he had off that particular album. Like If It Ain't, one of those type songs like If It Ain't, or like can't think of other ones off that particular album, but just some ones like that. I'd have to say is like Get Buku kind of torn up, I would feel like, in this song. This particularly snarls. I'd say this is an easy one. The thing about this particular album is Juicy J does not have as much full bound. I mean, he's definitely getting tore up on this project, but he doesn't talk as much full blown about sipping lean as much as like the full blown. I feel like this, like the craziness factor is kind of on here, but the overall, I feel like it has more to do with just like the commotion, just overall the times, more so than just every other bar talking about getting fucked up and just the concept behind it. I mean, Juicy J definitely probably got richer across the past several years as far as that particular kind of happens, but I feel like the sheer songs of like some of the most vicious moments off of Stay Trippy, like If It Ain't and Bands That Make Her Dance, and some of those type ones like Money a Do It and Gun Plus a Mask and So Much Money, some of those particular type ones, I just feel like comparatively it just is kind of like that. But it's this kind of thing. But I will say that there are, like, in terms of like that vicious kind of just complete head trip type appeal, I'd say apart from Buckets, another one that's really like that is Hot as Hell. I'd say in terms of like the most vicious turn up ones on here. And I definitely was interested in more songs like Buckets. Not, I mean, this album's going to get a 10 out of 10, of course, but I just look after it in terms of like the most shrill type ones with the carnage is just out on like full display. I feel like at least song like Ain't Nothing is probably like an 8 out of 10 in terms of like actual turn up, in terms of like the craziness. I mean, this is a pretty rave type album, but it's not like the most ferocious that Juicy J's done. I definitely feel like the more vicious time would have to be Hustle Till I Die from 2009, and then 2013 Stay Trippy definitely has like some pounding typeness, just in a more night outing type aspect. But this one, like I said, this is a busy album. This has like the appeal, this being more social, more dap getting kind of stuff like that. I'd have to say it was just kind of the concept that songs like Buckets and Hot as Hell are some of the craziest type moments, but I look after it. There's not as many sheer type ones for that. And I just would have to say it's not a complaint, because this album's still gonna get 10. This album's still gonna get not as huge a complaint, because this album's still gonna get a 10 out of 10. It's just something to kind of notice, just to know that it's crazy, but not the craziest Juicy J's ever been. So, but yeah, I'll go ahead and talk about Hot as Hell next, just to talk about that one, just with some more standard craziness. This one is like a pounding kind of house party slap of a song, and I'd say it's like some stock. It's like a stock Juicy J Kickstarter, I would definitely feel like, and it's like some gnarled, crazy flames I would feel like about this particular song, and it goes well with Buckets, like I was saying. It's a real nice one. some of these blistering type ones. I mean, I feel like Juicy J probably could have packed a whole album full with some of these type ones. I look after it, do appreciate the appeal behind it, but I almost question for some folks if you want some of the gnarl type craziness, just whether or not you'd miss songs like this. Because definitely these are like the money throwing type ones, the stand on the couch type ones, the women shaking their ass complete, this thong crazy typeness as far as that particular kind of goes. Just would have to say, just the aspect as far as that particularly kind of happens with it. Just some real excellent aspects that I suppose. But there are some standard like trap type cuts to kind of get on here in like a 3-6 Mafia type sense from like the vintage old days. So Dodging the Snakes would be one of these type ones. It's like a mixtape kind of trap boiler. I would definitely feel like it's like Dodging the Snakes is like a mixtape kind of trap boiler. I would definitely feel like it's like a good street buzz song. I would have to say it's like a classic kind of 3-6 Mafia late night smokage of a song. And I suppose this one probably something that you would hear DJ Paul, Project Pat, some of those type folks, this vintage type one to kind of get here. Definite Taco Bell run, gas station run, some pitches like that, just standard type fare. There's a few songs like this on here I would definitely have to say. Another one like that would be Drop a Bag. This one is like a brooding and kind of ghastly 3-6 Mafia Doom type song, I'd have to say. Pretty nice one for that. It's like a typical kind of Juicy J panache that he particularly kind of has. This is good for like some good late outing runs, I would definitely feel like. So it's just some good concepts here. Definitely some of these type ones. It's vintage type sound. I mean, the concept behind a lot of these type ones, just the fanfare of it. It's definitely a good thing to get like an updated 36 Mafia just because these types of sounds didn't happen as much. I mean, you had DJ Paul doing his stuff and Juicy J doing his stuff, but I look after it. It just felt like there weren't a ton of folks besides the old 36 Mafia members kind of doing this particular sound for these particular times. I mean, 2010's trap was taking over by this point in late 2017. It was just kind of like, as far as paying attention to some of these type ones, just being able to show it, just have those relative aspects is kind of the thing as far as that kind of goes. But this is really like the appeal. But there is another one like that, and that would be Feed the Streets, which has Project Pat and ASAP Rocky on here. Some good cameos with them. It's like a shrill and kind of ghastly vintage 3-6 Mafia street buzz too, and I had to say about this one. Good cameos, like I was saying, from those folks, and this is like a good snackish stroll type song to kind of get. So it's just some good fanfare, just some excellent type fanfare, just vintage Juicy J as far as those pitches kind of happen. I mean, a lot of these, they just kind of feel like, if you've heard like Juicy J's 2009 album Hustle Till I Die, some of the more street type cuts on there, some of the more rugged type ones, or Project Pat's 2006 album Crook by the Book, the Fed story from 2006. Some of those type ones that particularly kind of get to some of those type ones, like $2 Niggas sounds pretty similar to some of those type ones. A lot of those particular just pitches, but quality stuff as usual. On and On is a pretty nice one. This has Tory Lanez on here and a cat named Belly. I think I've heard of that particular cat, but as far as that particular kind of goes, I didn't realize that Tory Lanez's voice was that butter smooth. It's just an aspect behind it. It's an interesting concept because he was kind of like the go-to R&B type cat around 2017, 2018. I kind of lost track as to who some of the on point kind of R&B artists were after about 2016. I want to say that like Ty Dolla $ign was like 2014, 2015. Everyone used him for like a bunch of hooks. And then after that, I kind of stopped paying attention. But I think Tory Lanez was like the 2017, 2018, 2019 hook artist. But he was a rapper as well. So it's just a good concept. But this is like a blurry kind of quick times cruise gloss of a song. I'd have to say it's like some late 2010s taste of like R&B flavored boo songs to like boo and bass songs to kind of get here, and it's like a suave and groomed kind of gem to kind of get. So I do appreciate the concept of this one. It's a real nice cruise out type one. Another one that's kind of in motion, like some of these ones, like No English, some of those type ones, and there's another one that kind of has that like that particular appeal, like A Couple, some of these type ones, just within that relative type aspect. I'd say Only One Up's another one within that relative aspect of being like some car centric tightness to kind of get here. Get good concepts for that. But yeah, that's about the only real ladies song on this particular project. I'd say just really kept like a relative minimum as far as pitches like that kind of happen. But I do like the appeal. But Only One Up's another nice one to get. This like a ghoulish kind of cruise out, get late errands done type tune to kind of get here. It's like a thrilling kind of autumn music. I would definitely have to say some Taco Bell runs, pitches like that. And it's like a stunt song. I would have to say, and just like some good stunt gloss to kind of get. Only One Up's a pretty good pounding type one to get. It's a good pairing with like No English, just without the Travis Scott hook on there. I'd have to say it's a nice concept, kind of get some of those type ones. Just some standard vehicle knock to have for a lot of that type of appeal. Like I was saying, there's a number of these car centric type ones to kind of get. So like I was saying, this is pretty just boisterous type album to kind of be in motion just within that busy-body type fare. Just not so much in like a hustle sense though. That's kind of the concept. I mean, this is definitely a busy-body type one, but it's less about like the work shift and makeshift, just building up the money, getting some pitches like that, getting stacks up, some of that type fare. And just really, it's recreational just within a sense, but this is kind of more in the aspect of just more in the aspect of having shit to do and kind of going about your day and getting towards it as far as that kind of happens. And I don't mean getting towards it in terms of like having to, it's less about having to lace things up and more just about the aspect of like the fruits of your labor, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept to kind of have some of that, but I do appreciate the concept. But yeah, I'm trying to think of some other ones I haven't talked about yet on here. I think a couple's like the last one I think the last one I haven't talked about is full blown on here would be a couple. So talk about this one. It's like some stunt music with like hella knock. I would definitely feel like this like a Get Crunk kind of 3-6 Mafia pseudo drill sound. I would feel about this one like late 2010s type feel, I'd have to say. And this is like some good outs to kind of get. This is another one for the whip, like some of these type ones, like Only One Up and like On and On, and some of those type ones, and No English, some of those type ones. It's another slapper to kind of get for that in particular. But this is one that kind of blends that with like some Night Travelers, like the vintage kind of 3-6 Mafia, kind of pick up some snacks, some snackage, get like a frozen burrito, slice of pizza at the gas station, some of that type fare. This kind of has the knock of it, just within the sense of just like some Night Travelers, just commerce like that. Just another nice autumn snarl to kind of get with some of that type of feel. Just some ghastly night, just some ghastly typeness that just works pretty well. So that's the concept about this particular album. Me recommending all these songs on here. Basically, this album gets a 10 out of 10. Like I was saying, just all these songs really hit pretty heavily. The concept about this, like I've been saying, it's just a very busybody type project. Just appreciating the fruits of your labor, just appreciating the fruits of your labor as far as that particular gonna goes after a long day's hustle or a long week's hustle or a long couple of weeks hustle as far as that particular gonna goes. The step out of just getting ready to get crunk a bit, find some chicas as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Call up some homies, some pitches like that. Just get ready to throw some food in the mix, get some Taco Bell and some of that type of, and then just have like a hella kind of smokish type night or something like that. But like I said, I mean the sheer amount of just like get tore upness, I just feel like it's more about like the experience behind it, just like the fruits of the labor more so than the actual concept of this is just not as house party bound. I'd say in terms of like the songs that are designated to like, yeah, we're gonna get completely tore up this time. I feel like apart from songs like maybe Ain't Nothing, Buckets, and then like Hot as Hell, I feel like the sheer kind of get like is viciously tore up compared to like Stay Trippy and Hustle Till I Die. It's not as full blown on display. I definitely feel like I do miss some of that aspect behind Hustle Till I Die because that was just a vicious album in terms of like the house party type appeal and the overall craziness. But this one, just a lot more busybody. I just feel like it's just a lot. This is more of a social type project, just to be able to say it's just a dapper type project, just to be able to get the standard more panache and just things like that. It just like the kind of just being a little bit more of like a mingle type mode within a relative late 2010s trap type census within the aspect. So just it's a great album for out and about, but it's just kind of the concept. It's not as designated to like the crazy factor. So and I feel like even in terms of like some of these dance moments, I feel like apart from maybe Ain't Nothing and then maybe like one other song on here, like A Couple or something like that, which is referring to the song name A Couple as far as that particular kind of goes. I just feel like that's about the concept of it. But so it is a classic, but it's just a different amalgamation. I mean, you know, artists make different albums as far as that pitch can happen. So I just would recommend at this stage, every Juicy J album so far that I reviewed just has basically been a classic. I need to get to Chronicles of the Juice Man. I know I was going to review that back in 2015, but I didn't enjoy it as much. But I just question how I think of it nowadays. So it's this kind of thing. So I look after it. 10 out of 10 score. The social score as a result, I'm probably going to give the social score like a 9.25 out of 10. I feel like I would give it a 10 out of 10 because a lot of these songs hit pretty heavily. This does have some vehicle slap, definitely some good commerce type music to kind of get. A surprising blue collar song and Flood Watch, some of that type of appeal. Does have a couple of songs dedicated to get tore up in some of those type nests and just a good lady song as far as that particular one goes. It's a pretty glossy album. But I just look after it. None of these singles charted that heavily. I just was surprised that Juicy J didn't have that same commercial bite that he normally does. At least he did in the early 2010s and such. So it's this kind of thing. He amalgamated pretty well to like the late 2010s type sound, but it's just kind of a concept that I'm glad that this album came out because he had delayed it for 4 years as far as pitches like that kind of happen. So it's just kind of the thing. But look, after the quality is definitely there. It's just not, I mean, it has the crazy factor and like a relative. I mean, I definitely feel like for late 2010s trap and things like that, this seems like one of the crazier type ones. But I know Juicy J can get a lot crazier, and that's just to be seen. I would just invest in some of his earlier music, but I do feel like this is still pretty, like I was saying before, like relatively schizophrenic, just in the sense that a lot of this is just dismantled as far as that kind of goes. But I just know it's vintage stuff, so that's this kind of thing. It's just me. It's just more personal complaints more so than the actual quality of it being matched. That's this kind of thing, but still 9.25 social. In terms of the future, like Juicy J dropped an album in 2020 called The Hustle Continues. I'm going to get to that one, see how that one stacks up. Look after it. He has dropped some other projects. He had said that he was going to drop a number of albums in 2024. Apparently, he's working on like a collaboration album with Project Pat, which is going to be pretty awesome, I'd have to say. I want to say he actually dropped an album in 2024. I don't know it's full blown, but I'd have to say there is a possibility that that kind of happened. But we're going to get to some more of these, some excellent type stuff to get here. But this is a surprising classic. I would definitely feel like this is an excellent type concept kind of get here. Just Juicy J with another stock hit to kind of get easy enough to recommend, and it just has some of that Fully Intense Trap type craziness, just with Juicy J's typical kind of ghastly type fare as far as that kind of goes.